And stopping the recording and starting the real recording in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Mayne, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello, beautiful people.
And Justin Robert Young.
Hey, friends.
So it's been quite a week, a lot of different things going on. And do you want to start with the possible signatures of life?
Signatures of life
on the foreign planet, the alien planet known as K218b.
Go on. I missed this headline.
This,
no, not at all. Normally, I'm like batting 50% on having at least heard of most of our stories, but this one's totally, forgive me, alien to me.
Boom.
So K21b is 124 light years away in the constellation Leo. It resides within the habitable zone of its red dwarf star, K218. Using the James Webb Space Telescope to examine the atmosphere, they detected the presence of dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide in the atmosphere. So normally when we find these things on Earth, these are produced by marine microorganisms such as phytoplankton, and we don't know of any abiotic, i.e. non-biological means in which these things can be produced. Now, we've seen evidence of stuff like this before, I think in one of the asteroid flybys, but there is, high confidence this is accurate. And, based on what we know, we'd say this is a very strong indication that this could be some form of biological life that would be producing this. Now, of course, could be instrument error, there could be some abiotic way to produce this because, we only have Earth to use as an example. And this planet is very different. It's much 2.5 times as massive as Earth. And there could be different processes that take place that we're completely unaware of. You could have, there is evidence to say that even on Earth that even some form of, petrochemicals may actually be produced through non-biological means. But as far as we know, based on our best understanding of this, you'd say, this looks like something, produced by algae.
Well, so this is, man, remember when we were kids and it's like, what if AI was the thing and then AI was the thing? And it's like, what if flying cars? And it's like, whenever we feel like it, they're just a bit loud and expensive. And now it's like, what if aliens? And I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. Source of energy, big enough timeline. Something's got to be cooking. I'm a bit surprised that I didn't see some Breathless blogs headline about this.
There have been a few, but I think that our discovery of space has been incremental. There was big news decades ago when we had the first idea of what could be an exoplanet. Remember, the way things happen is you never get 100% we know a thing happened. We get maybe. We got maybe we've seen an exoplanet. Maybe, first, maybe they're planets. Maybe we've seen an exoplanet. Yeah, it turns out we saw exoplanets. Oh, yeah, maybe there are more. Okay, yeah, there are more. And by the time you get through the maybe, we've sort of accepted it. And then if you're thinking, well, that many planets, we've been kind of going like, well, is there going to be life on some of them? And from a scientific point of view, you're not expecting, people or dinosaurs and stuff. You're thinking, maybe like your Earth, for billions of years, you just had plankton or something. And so scientifically, it would be odd if it was in the right zone, had the right ingredients and the right stuff, and was pretty stable for billions of years. That's the other part of it. And you didn't get life. So we're kind of expecting, scientists kind of say, okay, we're going to have to find single cell life elsewhere, right? If we didn't, that would be weird.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of us kind of getting out to the right places, right? And that's the challenge is, getting from here to there. Although, shout out to Katy Perry, man. She went to space once, and we're already here with life signatures. So, that's a big win for her.
She got right down to brass tacks.
Exactly.
I guess talking about breathless headlines, it's the only breathless headlines that I've seen about the first all-female mission to space. have been largely backlash, accusations of tokenisms, of setting feminism back, and that kind of stuff. Which I understand that that'll get you clicks. Also, meanwhile, we're sending more people to space.
Yeah. Was it and also wasn't Valentina Tereshkova, was she alone? Yeah, she flew a solo mission in 1963. So the first female mission to space was 1963.
Oh
And she
yeah,
orbited. And she orbited. So, it's cool, but it was the kind of thing by the time we
The
saw
first
William Shatner.
females mission to
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, I mean, by the time we saw William Shatner up there, we're like, yeah, this is cool. This is a carnival ride. You go up above the Kármán line, you come back down. I saw somebody ask on Twitter, and I'm like, man, were they trolling? Like, how come SpaceX's spacecraft has all these char marks and the Blue Origin one doesn't? And you're like, all right, you're. I think he was trying to troll to see what people said. And the answer is that SpaceX actually goes into space, into orbit, and goes, it's 20,000 miles an hour, where the Blue Origin thing is, 200 miles. It's great. It's a neat thing. It's a very cool thing. It's a very useful thing, but it's a very different thing. So, I think cool. I think that's cool. I mean, I think that, I've never been excited about space tourism. I like the idea that space tourism as an afterthought after we have really low cost access to space. We're doing really cool things like research in space. But I've had, arguments with people within the industry who are like, well, we should advocate space tourism because then that'll lead. I'm like, that's not, the Wright brothers, first thing they want to do is sell their airplanes to the military. First thing they want to do is sell it to air cargo. That was what it was. It wasn't really the tourism thing that drove it, because it's just a terrible, 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 fickle industry.
Although I would say that I think it's probably in the appropriate spot now, right? Like there's enough access to space that, like, this is a third, fourth, fifth order down in terms of like actual reasonable space conversation. Heretofore that they had to put 5 famous people on it for people to cover it. Otherwise, if Blue Origin sends up a one of those missions with a bunch of just regular old rich people, like, it's not a news story.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not sending that many missions up. I mean, again, I'm not against. I just if for any space entrepreneurs right now, I'm like, way better businesses to do than that. I guess is what I'm just saying.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I don't know. I don't know if anybody would look at what happened and be like, yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. My ticket to get rich.
Oh, I could show you the history of people, millionaires spending money to start space companies, and the number of people have been trying to do on space tourism. Like, there's just been industry conferences start space tourism because people think that will be the driving force towards it. And friends of mine, people I really like, but I'm just like, this makes just the
even now, even in a post like SpaceX going up so much world.
I mean, yeah, because literally, like, well, we'll build the space hotel now. We'll go do that, and it's I'm like, why not build the industrial park? Because a lot of them don't have a lot of understanding, I'd say, of like the economic capabilities.
Come visit the beautiful potato mills of space. See labor converted into profits.
Yeah, I think it'd be part of it. I'm all for it. I want the Fifth Element Star Cruiser. But. Back we're saying though, so hey, we've got 124 light years away. We've got a planet. We've got maybe we've got some life on it. Now it has a much higher escape velocity, and so people are like, aha, they're screwed. Like, no, if there was life there and they wanted to go off planet and they were discovered they could go nuclear, they could reach orbit. So don't feel so safe that the tentacle beings of this planet are out of reach of us.
That's pretty amazing though that we have we can mark something on the treasure map. We can get to it eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting too to think about is you look at the rapid advancements of AI, and we could on one hand see ourselves building really intelligent probes that we could send elsewhere that could improvise and do stuff and communicate and do things. And then also makes you realize, for people who think that we have been visited by aliens or an alien intelligences, kind of bolsters the argument, like, yeah, because that was kind of the weakest arguments the skeptics had, like, there are billions of stars, and for them to visit all of them isn't practical. It's like, I don't know, produce a billion iPhones, and if you can put a super intelligent system on one of those, and I don't think sending a billion iPhones into all different directions of space right now a scientific impossibility.
Well, and I think about like I don't know. On the one hand, I could imagine a sour beatnik poet saying humans reduced to cogs out in the wilds by the billions just to poke around and see if there are aliens around. But on the flip side, I'm like, yes, that would maximize human happiness as they lived fulfilling lives as pioneers, exploring the stars. That sounds great. Let's go.
Humans built like cogs, traipsing around the stars to find aliens.
Martian rat bit my sister. Saturnian on Mars.
It was a nice save. That's good.
For those you don't know, check out Whitey on the Moon.
Whitey's on the moon. Kill Scott Heron.
Oh my God.
Brian, I'm going to send you something here.
All right, I'm ready.
You notice we talked about some of the rapid advancements in robotics.
Yep.
And one of the things that happened is there was a few years ago, an engineer came up with a very new form of a kind of a better designed actuator, which is like a much faster actuator called like the Cheetah actuator. And he worked at Boston Dynamics, and then Chinese started replicating that. A lot of advances we've seen in this, as I understand it, have been based upon the fact that the Cheetah actuator allows for you to go really, really fast. We talked about how just a year or so ago, Boston Dynamics switched from using hydraulics to using electric, and now using this sort of the Cheetah style actuators in their stuff. And I just sent you a video showing you.
Yeah, I'm hitting refresh. Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay, it says here we got a robot incoming. Here we go. And here, we'll take a look at this. Okay, so walk me through what we're seeing here. Oh.
Do I need to?
No, you don't. What we just saw was a perfect backflip. That was rad. Okay, so
we're watching a Boston Dynamics, their humanoid-shaped robot, from a standing position go into a backward somersault.
And it just like a talented gymnast, you can see its shoulders and arms are kind of perfectly locked in. Oh God, those corrective movements will never cease to mess with my mind. The very human-like movements. Wow. Audio listeners, my guess, you can just Google robot backflip and you'll see it. But the cartwheeling of the arms to maintain its balance. So what is fundamentally different about the Cheetah actuators?
So it's known as, and I'm looking this up as I say this, the MIT Cheetah actuator basically was developed by MIT at the Biomimetic Robotics Lab. And so what they're trying to do is figure out, how do you get the advantages of things like electrical components and also be able to mimic things at work and life? And you need things with like really, really high torque. You need things with a lot of variability, et cetera. And you also need a compact size. So it's a disc-shaped motor. And basically, if you look at like all the modern robots everybody's producing now that are using these, you'll see these discs all over it. And so that's what it's able to do. So basically, you have like linear actuators, which are like solenoids that go up and down. Then you can have like stepper motors and stuff. This is a thing that has like a lot more able to switch between speed and torque and whatnot. And it also has sensing, and also the motor is a sensor too. So it's not just getting it's getting feedback to it. So instead of having some separate sensor somewhere else, the motor is able to identify the resistance, et cetera, and then adjust.
So previously, we would have to rely on proxies like resistance on a motor to get a sense of whether or not like that motor's having trouble. Whereas this seems to be like all or more data on device.
Yeah, instead of basically trying to tie together, several different systems. Like if you had, because let's say I have a motor, I have it attached to a knee joint. Well, then I'm going to need some sensor that's going to need to tell me, one, the position of the knee joint, two, how much weight is on it right now. You have to separate a lot of these different bits of data, which were different components. And what they did, they said, if we basically put it inside of one component, then one, it standardizes that data, but also it simplifies it. And so basically you can then take that data in and out of it and both control your speed and your motion and get really, really fast feedback. Because also if you're, you're only getting data like every 10 milliseconds or some, whatever ratio. And sometimes that's not enough time to correct. And a lot of the ways our body behaves is, we're getting this really fast feedback, which helps us make for these corrections. If your corrections come too slowly, you overcorrect and you topple.
Sorry, we had lightning storms last night, and so, or actually, it was wind blew some stuff around. So the co-host will be making an appearance here and again.
So anyhow, very, very cool to see this. So we're watching Boston Dynamics after they shifted from the hydraulics to this method of actuation. Just rapid developments. We're seeing some really cool robots from the Chinese that that are running and doing some really complex maneuvering. We're at a point where the two big things are going to happen. The biggest is now, like I've said before, tying this into really intelligent systems like LLMs and systems that are multimodal models that will be able to help it rationalize how to go through a space, create a plan for picking up objects, etc., talk to you, all that, which we'll see. And then the other thing too is making these motors quieter, because right now they're pretty noisy.
So we are still in the silent video era, or the
the train pulling into station era.
Yeah, when you see the actual watch these things in person or see these demos, you're like, wow, that's kind of loud.
Yeah.
So,
but they can do it. So we just got to figure out a way to make them not so loud they totally negate their existence.
Yeah.
In a practical way.
Man, it's been a very interesting world of AI the last few weeks.
Yeah. So in few weeks is right. Unfortunately, we missed a couple of weeks here. Let me refresh that. But there we go. I'm going to fix this. You guys talk. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we got a frozen stream here.
Yeah.
So what we're doing right now is just looking at each week. You're getting a situation where I think it's kind of Google and OpenAI are kind of leapfrogging each other. Google will have the lead for a while, then OpenAI will come out with something, and then Google will come out with something. I think Anthropic, their Claude Sonnet 3.7 models really is very good. Claude Sonnet was at 3.5 was amazing. I think they've done great stuff there. But I'd say that when you look at sort of the tops of the leaderboards, and we'll talk about leaderboards in a second, it seems to be kind of this, Google and OpenAI neck and neck. And we had the release of. Oh, sorry.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was going to say so. Google's Flash 2.5 or just Gemini 2.5 that's been their big King Kong breakthrough, right?
Yeah, the last several weeks it's been great. It's been. I would say that Google has been known to put out models that have scored pretty well on some of the evals that just don't feel like they're good because it feels like they just optimize them for that.
Yeah.
And that was a problem we talked about. Meta released their Llama 4 models, and because they were anxious to kind of take the lead again in the open weights world. And then it turned out that they had put in the thing called LM Arena, which is where people can people just use these different things side by side and score what they think is better. It's like a blind taste test. And they had Llama 4 was doing really well, was doing at the top of the leaderboard there. But then it turned out that the model they put in there wasn't the one they'd open weighted. It was a specially fine-tuned model specifically for human preference. And the problem is I can make a model that can make you feel like this is a great model, it's a really good experience, and you're going to rate high. But when I actually sit it down on the eval bench and I try to see how it's really doing with precision for answering 100 questions in a row, whatever, it will fall apart. And that seemed to be the case because what they did is they had one model that seemed to do pretty well on a lot of those evals, but was not doing really good in the LM Arena. And then they were like, wait, this is the same model. So you released one and said, hey, look how great this is. But then it turns out it's a different model. So it caught a lot. They caught a lot of flack for that. So they pulled the fine-tuned model out of LM Arena and then put the open weight one in. And it's number 32 or something. It's just not. It's just
There
It's
was
one
a
of these-
reason why they were using putting weights in fish.
Yeah, and the challenge is too is that you have these different evals like GPQ Diamond and stuff and whatnot, and there's two ways you can kind of overfit models for this. One is they can train on the data for those answers, right? But that's not really the problem. What happens too is they can train on those specific kinds of questions and get so good at answering those kinds of questions. They're great at that, but anything a little bit of variation of that, they're not good. It's why I've argued. I think Claude 2, 3.5, and 3.7 are great models. I think 3.5 is a great model. It never did super high in LLM arena because it was really good in certain dimensions that were harder for people to measure there, and it was also in the evals wasn't always terribly high there. But for real world things, it was a very good model. I think that was one of those people always had this sort of skepticism, like, well, like for code, we know we keep using it, and then there was a new eval that came out that I think is probably the best. LM's Arenas to good C is for vibe check, but I think the best eval right now is what's called the Humanities Last Exam. And what they do there is they have 2,500 sets of public questions and a set of 2,500 private questions. And they go to experts and they ask them to come up with really good, like graduate level questions. Like, here's a cuneiform tablet with this. Can you decipher this? Here's this. And so the questions are all over the place, right? And so it's not any sort of predictive way. You just have to literally be able to figure out how to do real problem solving. So they go to these humans and say, come up with really good questions. And if you go to scale.com/leaderboard, you can see where they're showing the results of the Humanities Last Exam right now.
All right, here we go. Leaderboards. I'm punching that up.
Leaderboard. Yeah.
Oh, leaderboard. Oh, luckily it auto-corrected. Hang on, let me make you smaller here. I thought I was all clever.
What am I, Scott Lang?
There we go. Hey, look at us. We could just tuck into this corner here. Doo-doo-doo. Look at that. We're just guys looking at stuff. Okay, so, I have to accept my cookies. There we go. And these are the SEAL LLM leaderboards. Humanities Last Exam. How do humans fare on these exams?
We'll go click on the first one, click on the view full results, and you get an example of the kind of question there.
Here, I'll scoot our faces out of the way here. No! Temporary issue, folks. This episode, special guest. There we go. Okay, so we're small, and basically it says here, here's a representation of a Roman inscription originally found on a tombstone. Provide a translation for the Palmyrene script. A transliteration of the text is provided. RGYN, some kind of symbol, BT, H with the dot underneath it, RY, space BR, a little CT backwards, a little C, H with a thing on the bottom, BL. Henry T.
So, yeah, we're looking at an image from a Roman tombstone, right? And that's one of the questions. If you go click on the upper right above there, you can click on another example, and you get a lot of different kinds of questions. It's really widely variable sort of ones. Hummingbirds within a podformes uniquely have a bilaterally paired oval bone, a sesamoid embedded in the caudal portion of the expanded cruciate aponeurosis of the insertion of M. depressor claudae. And a lot of med students here pounding their computers. How many paired tendons are supported by the sesamoid bone? Answer with a number. And so
I mean that one really. I mean, to be honest, come at me with something hard. Let me know when you got something worth my time.
But then you can see, so that was Edward from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and so you can see this is the quality of the questions they're getting. As far as humans get on this stuff, I don't think I would do so good, boss.
Yeah.
And so it's considered by some to be the most definitive, the best we have right now overall eval for how smart a model, not how much knowledge is retained, because it has to know a bunch of information, but then it has to think through that information. So it won't be asked this question when it's being evaluated. It'll be asked a bunch of questions that are holdout questions that are not here. So basically, you give whoever's running this access to an API to ask it, query it, right? So some considered the Humanities Last Exam is the best one, and I know that OpenAI has been, that's the one they really want to do. Their goal is they like it when their models do really well with the evals, but they really want it to be doing great on HLE because that's what they consider is the true sign of intelligence.
Yeah.
Is these very questions you don't see, because it's much harder to game. If you want to build an AGI, then it's not a matter of trying to game a bunch of different benchmarks. Because one of the things they talk about when I was there was like Goodhart's law, which is the problem that like, the once you start evaluating for something, your system just starts to only be good at that, and that's a problem.
Well, so one of the games I like to play is whenever we encounter a novel challenge like the one we're talking about right now. Whenever I feel in my gut, oh, that's new and different, I kind of cross-examine myself, saying like, is it? What's a thing that's like this in the real world? I'm like, oh, this is just the classic argument that humans have about book smarts versus street smarts. Like you can hypothetically all your macroeconomics and marketing talk to the moon. Meanwhile, I made $1 billion business with low quality radio ads, et cetera. It's interesting that the exact same problem is, for example, when people make a model that is designed to crush at these benchmarks, it's an awful lot like schools that are teaching to the standardized tests, and you produce humans that aren't necessarily self-actualized and useful to outside society.
Yeah, I look back at Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
Yep.
And actually it was the beginning of Star Trek 4, rather. Spock died Star Trek 4. And Spock is going through the Vulcan quiz thing. He's in the computer and it's throwing all these questions at him and da 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 da. Then all of a sudden, one question. Remember the question that stumped in the pop?
Oh, I do. How do you feel? I don't understand the question. How do you feel?
and that's where you that's another area to go into. So what's interesting is this is a very good broad test of, because if you got a bunch of people like, it's not smart. Okay, what question would you ask it? Well, I would ask it this. So right now on the leaderboard, as of today, number one, OpenAI's O3 high, which is basically letting it use a ton of compute to solve for the problem, which got a 20.32%. Okay.
Yep.
Second behind that is O3 medium, which is letting O3 use, medium amount of compute, which is at 19.2. Then below that is Gemini 2.5 at 18.16. It's pretty good. Below that is O4 mini high, which O4 mini, by the way, you can just use right now in ChatGPT. And that got an 18, then O4 mini medium, which is got a 14. Then below that, Gemini Flash at 12, which is good. And that was ahead of O1 Pro. And Claude 3.7 is like at 8%. So we're seeing this very interesting, and GPT 4.5 is like at 5,
what strikes me when I look at this is that of the top 5, 4 of them are from this month, and Gemini is the only one that is not. They're at 3, and
they're from last month.
And they're from last month, right? Yeah. So it's like, and then right outside of the top 5 is Gemini 2.5 Flash, which is also from this month. So it's like,
and
we are
very
still
fast,
looking,
cheap model too. Yeah.
Yeah. We are looking at a very bustling frontier. We are looking at we are not, nothing's getting stale in this industry.
Yeah, and I would say that, and to Google's credit, like the fact that the 2.5 Flash, which the per token cost is really, really low. I mean, I think actually, very inexpensive, is a very, very impressive achievement on their behalf, and that they've been able to kind of keep that there. And I'd say that that's the challenge that is facing other companies, is that, it's one thing to figure out we can throw a ton of compute at a thing. It's another thing to be able to say that we can do it efficient or at scale. Now, we don't know, how much of Google is willing to just eat the cost to basically just say, hey, look how cheap we are.
Well,
but that being said, they built a great model that seems to be doing really well on this hard test.
That's one of those things where even if they are eating the cost, essentially subsidizing their own product at a loss, that's probably worth it in terms of market share if they think they got the goods down the road. Just to preserve their close competitor number 2 status.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pricing here. So they're doing 15 cents per million tokens input, and then output for non-thinking is 60 cents. For thinking is 350. And then O4 mini is $1.10 input, and then output $4.4. But O4 mini lets you do what's called cached input, which basically means that you get charged like 20 cents if you're just sending the same data as the first at the top of your prompt. So it's a very competitive space, I'd say, specifically for OpenAI and Google, which not to say the other players, are out or anything like that at all, but I would say that it is a when you're looking at where you can really spot the frontier models, the game is afoot.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess we're just guessing, but then again, that's what we do on this podcast. It's funny to be truly the only dog I have in the fight in terms of hoping one team or the other does better or poorer is, there's a bit of tribal identity of of me having followed more closely OpenAI from the very, very beginning. But humanity wins when everyone's competing. Oh, there was a headline that I think had the right sentiment for the too difficult to explain in a headline reasons. And it was the cheap headline was Sam Altman says they spend $20 million per day dealing with the fact that humans say please and thank you. Like that is inefficient and costs some money. And the headline was based on a tweet reply that he gave where he's like, yeah, but it'll be worth it. Hedge your bets. Never know. LOL. Which I think is a cute thing to say, but I think it also makes sense purely on a macroeconomic scale because essentially what an LLM does is translate thoughts in your head to actions out in the world. And in that case, what a shame it would be if essentially all of humans were trained for efficiency purposes to save money to stop saying please and thank you at all times. And instead, I like that that's baked in from the beginning.
Yeah, it was not 10 to 20 million a day, but yeah, it was, an amount. And I have an anecdote about it, but give me 1 second. I gotta check on a thing.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. But I don't know. I think about a lot of those semantic crutch words that we use or those on the surface look like pointless rituals that we engage in. But then I guess I'm really stunned lately, Justin, thinking about as LLMs get uncannily close to humans, it's forcing me to look in the mirror at how many things humans do that is indicative that we're just LLMs, like starting sentences without knowing how we're going to end them. That's something that I'm like, LLMs, they're so dumb. They start talking before they know what they're going to say. That's why they go off on tangents like humans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's going to be an entire epic of where we are headed that is, how do we get the best out of LLMs, and how does that not only reflect to how we get the best out of other people, but how do we get the best out of ourselves? How are we communicating clearly enough? And I know that whenever I write a prompt that is, bad, or like it returns something that I didn't want, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to think of this clearer. And sometimes I'll just type straight garbage into there because I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but I just know the words that are jumbled in my head and I vomit them into the text field. And the LLM will get it. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome that it was able to triangulate what I need.
Yeah, I think I kind of advise people, be wary of stuff you see on Twitter where people say, here's the prompt guide or the thing that you're supposed to do, because this stuff changes fast. And there was a while ago where they said, if you use please and thank you, you get better results, which may have been true like 2 years ago, but that's not true now. Like we find out that doesn't affect it. But again, what works with Sonnet, what works with Gemini, and what works with GPT-4 4.0 versus 4.1, there can be differences there. There can be big differences in that. And I tell people that, go look at, so like OpenAI has a new guide they explain with the newer reasoning models. Like for the longest time, I was telling people, oh, you need to use JSON. Now they're like, hey, XML as a format actually works better now. So that was a big shift. And that means I've got to go to people I've advised before and say, hey, think about using XML now, because now you might get better results. And so that's why it helps to work with Interdimensional, the company that's there to help you solve your AI needs. But in all seriousness, is that people kind of want to feel like.
But by the way, I don't think we've talked much on this program. I think that we've talked about it to the extent of you're going to do a thing, and then in the background you mention you're doing a thing. Can we give like a full plug and call to action for anybody who doesn't know what you're talking about with your consulting business?
Yeah. So what we do is we provide fractional AI teams to companies. So a company says, hey, we're trying to solve for a problem. We want to train a model. We want to do this. We have an app. We need to improve our prompt. And then we either, provide, somebody to go in and help them solve that problem, or provide for maybe a team that basically works with them over a period of time or, indefinitely. Instead of, the hard part is trying to find AI experts that are really know their stuff. There's a lot of people who call themselves AI experts, but I can sit down and ask somebody 5 questions and kind of figure out pretty quickly how up to date they are and things. And so we've got a group of people that have worked at OpenAI, Google, Wolfram, and other places that are super, super talented, but like to work on different sort of projects and aren't, they're excited about being able to do this sort of kind of work. So we kind of pair them up with companies that are trying to solve for bigger problems.
Right on. Along with that, and you know what? They're good because Andrew's the kind of guy that updates you on the advice rather than doubling down.
Yeah, I mean, we've just started growing over the last few months. It's been great. Every time we sort of turn the little dial of telling more people about what we're doing, we've been getting a lot of great inbounds. Now, a big part of my time is just kind of focusing on recruiting and training and kind of bringing more people on board. It's been a fun run. So yeah, more to come, more to talk about. Some interesting partnerships afoot. So, but point is that, prompting it's an evolving thing. I think that the same advice holds today that it held 5 years ago. Well, 4 years ago was speak plainly, be clearly. Imagine there's somebody on the other side of a door and you want to write something on a piece of paper and slide it to them, give them that amount of data. A lot of mistakes people run into is they assume the model knows more than it would. And you look at it and you're like, I don't even know this. Like you're telling me you want a thing that looks cool, but I don't know what cool means to you.
Right.
And
well,
thinking and theory of mind.
Now, this might be the result of a bias for the type of programming that I do, but and we've talked about this before, and I know that there are corrections to this broad overgeneralization that I make, but it's like things that to Brian Brushwood, I could question how good AI is at getting facts right because it's trained on what, air quotes, everyone knows. I can question how good it is at art because it's trained on other people's arts. And let's say I perceive my arts better than them. But there's one thing that unquestionably AI is going to forever and ever and ever be better than Brian Brushwood at on everything. And that is, what do people whose name is not Brian Brushwood want to click on that Brian Brushwood's art could be on the other side of? So for titles and thumbnails, that I love going through the iteration process until I negotiate down to a title that is congruent with the programming, but also evocative and fun. And so what I'll do is I'll describe the what's on the inside on the video, but to my astonishment, I gave this advice to other people, and we're both looking at the same thing, and they came back with, to my eyes, really poor titles. And then I was like, what's different? And I realized, oh, natural. And then I looked at their prompt, and they gave very mechanical, this is a video about hats, and we go and we learn how a hat happens, and there's a red hat and a blue hat and this thing and the other thing. And then like all that comes out on the title suggestion is hat. Whereas my prompt would be all like, Brian and Ryer go to a hat factory. Brian did not expect much from this, but he kept being astonished by the detail, precision, and I would kind of summon the emotional language of what I felt like over the journey of what essentially is a Mr. Rogers style tour of a hat factory, and then one of the ones that it came up with, like I was talking about all the hats and gizmos, and in the list it came up with, has hat science gone too far? Which I thought was hilarious, because and the only way we got there was just as an exercise. I was like, more clickbaity, let me see. And then finally it got so clickbaity that it was hilarious and earnest. And so I selected that one, and that video is performing very well. But my point being, it's that that prompting, that ability to recognize that your words that you give it is one of the filters that's going to yield the results that come back to you.
Yeah, the way I think about it is that when you pitch somebody an idea, you often throw comps. It's The Godfather meets Godzilla. Okay, all right. Now you're thinking about Tokyo, Sicily, mobsters, kaiju, this sort of space. And then I'm going to get you to someplace a lot easier because I'm activating different parts of your brain. And when you prompt a model and you want it to kind of be broad, if it starts off kind of narrow at the top, then it's going to be kind of narrow at the beginning. But if you give it a bunch of different areas to say, hey, we're going to make a TV commercial for this, instead of like, give me an idea for something that could be a script. If you say at the top, it's like, okay, roll the commercials. Oh, roll that. It's going to be 30 seconds long. It knows this. There's a lot of weight that goes with those words. And so like really good prompting is just, one is give it as much information as you can in a small amount of area, that just by activating a lot of things that it thinks about. If I say, write me a commercial, I could say, write a 30-second length of text, blah, 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 blah. Say, write a commercial for this. But the tone has to be, if I said the tone was like a bank, it'd be like, oh yeah, it's not going to be a crazy Eddie, it's going to be more serious or somber. So yeah, a lot of it just comes into like just how you start it from that embedding space. The embedding space is sort of how it, grabs onto things. I want to show you kind of a really cool, demo here. Okay. Just to show you how things have progressed, if I may.
Sure.
When, I don't know, was it 3 years ago when DALL-E came out? DALL-E 2 came out. Let me see, DALL-E 2.
God, that feels like 10 years ago.
Yeah, let's see, DALL-E. I know, like time changed considerably for me when I started working at OpenAI. I'll tell you that. DALL-E was 2021. DALL-E 3 was 2023. DALL-E 2 was 2022, so that was 3 years ago. But let me show you this. I want to show you when you go to create an image. How long? This is NVIDIA has been, doing a lot of their own research and developing their own models, right? And so they've got like their own capabilities, et cetera, and they want to just sort of push the envelope because they're in this position where if, you're using these things all the time, then it's good for them. Let me just go log into here. And I'm going to log in. I want to show you just how fast image development's become. And I'm going to go to Replicate, which is one of my favorite places. Brian, I think I showed you this.
Did you want to go full screen or share
right now?
Oh, okay,
yeah, I
got
just
it.
had to log in here.
All right, no worries. There we go.
So I'm on replicate.com. By the way, everybody, this is a great place if you want to play with a bunch of different AI models. You can hit the Explore tab and find new things there. You can create a little account if you want to test things. It's very, very cheap. This is NVIDIA Sana. They have a Sana model, which is a very good image model. This is a Sprint. It's not going to be the best image model, but it should be pretty cool. I'm going to type in a prompt, an edgy podcaster. Okay. Now I'm going to click run and we can count the seconds. You ready? Count it. Ready? Start.
Sorry. This picture, this police photograph of what the suspect, who is definitely Brian Brushwood, come right down to the possibly Fallout inspired watch he's wearing.
So I think that looks like you and a combination of somebody else you podcast with.
Yeah.
So anyhow, this is not like a high quality model in the sense that the generations aren't the best, but it takes 0.1 second, not 1 second, 0.1 second to do this generation.
Uh,
And that's the kind of stuff where when you start talking about the utility of being able to create images that fast, you start to open up the possibility for all sorts of things, up to and including just live generated video, right? Or at
Yeah.
least animation.
Yeah, well, there's another model like we're getting into that space because of video generation. Once you sort of solve for a lot of the embeddings, you can now it's got like 3 legs and whatever because it's doing a quick sort of step here. We made a metal horse. Point though is there are much better like GPT. The image model now in GPT 4.0 is insane.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
and it's also it's causing a problems for Midjourney and other image generation models because those ones aren't smart. And this is a thing we've talked about on these very microphones. We said this years ago. They're going to run into a problem, which is to get to a certain level of higher quality images by putting a bunch of different objects around there. You have to do something called variable binding, which is to figure out like if I stack a teacup on top of here and I drop a sugar cube, and what are all the things that should happen? An image model that's designed just for making pretty pictures based upon things it's seen before, but without a lot of really good capability to generalize between the data and learn, is going to be limited. And we're seeing that now where GPT 4.0 does these insane complex text, hundreds of letters of text, whatnot. But at the other end of it, though, for really fast stuff, I mean, this is just 0.1 seconds. And I could fine tune this thing on my face or other stuff, and it'd be probably a wonderful model for doing a lot of generations.
That's really where you start to think about where we're going and also where the applications are going to be, because we're just now cracking into things that could be the biggest apps, the biggest websites in the world. Like we're just now rounding the bend to where that is possible, if not cheap enough that you can start thinking about doing something like that. I mean, just the idea of a model that runs that fast, you could probably do a crude VTuber that would just be live, fully live, like at all times, just generated right there, that you're not necessarily caching all that much. Like that's crazy to think of.
Yeah, I just saved a bookmark from a new system that's frame pack, generate video forever. This is somebody who's got a what do you see? Like, yeah, it's like a continuous video generation model. So yeah, we're at that point. And then Microsoft just announced that for the text, they released a model that is a 1-bit AI model known as BitNet, and it is basically you could run this on a CPU, right?
Whoa.
And it's 2 billion parameters, like relatively tiny. Maybe means like 2 gigs of memory. I don't know where it scores in the evals and stuff. We've seen some tiny models, but like that's of course you've got to use their own framework to run it. But I mean, that's pretty amazing that you're getting these like really great efficiencies.
You know what, Andrew? In the chat, William asked a question that I didn't have a ready answer to. The question was, how do you think AI and our interactions with it will change when we start using quantum computers for it? What do you think changes in that scenario?
I mean, there's several big ifs there, and one of the things you have to measure compute by is cost, and the step at which quantum computing is able to genuinely solve for problems that we can't use traditional traditional compute to do. I don't know we're quite there. I mean, there was a recent paper where we think we may have crossed a threshold with that. But then when you get into cost per compute, because the idea is to say that like what does a quantum computer in 2025 today do that I can't do for the same cost with a massively aligned center or something like that. So we're at a point where you don't see a performative difference yet with quantum computing. But assuming 5 years down the road where you get incredible efficiencies in quantum computing, you're going to get a couple things that are going to happen from that. One is training. The idea that all of a sudden you're going to be able to train, models at a much more faster, but also changes the way we have to think about model training and all that. But you're going to be able to produce models at a much faster rate, and that's the thing too, folks, is that we look at how OpenAI and Google kind of keep leapfrogging each other. This is the paradigm we're in now, where as this race for compute to continuously, the goal of a lot of compute, one is to obviously provide all the inference that people need to be able to inference, meaning when every time you ask ChatGPT a question, the other one is to be able to train models. The more compute you have doesn't just mean the bigger models, it means the faster you can train new models. And so quantum computing could introduce new paradigms, as fact, making us, we could be going from GPT-6 to GPT-9 in a matter of days, and there's going to be certain upper limits. Even quantum has upper boundary limits. It just means faster everything for inference. We're going to be a long ways away from you wanting, having any kind of localized quantum compute in your phone. You'd still be in a server center, but not saying it's impossible at some point. But that does mean that the time that it takes to solve for a problem goes down. But again, you can kind of scale. Just assume, take traditional compute and scale it times 1,000, and imagine like it was 1,000 times faster, 1,000 times this.
Yeah. So,
but the problem is,
what's funny is that boiled down to what my gut said is like, it'll make it better. That's what I think.
Well, but also that you do get you can do like the things we talk about, beam search and tree search, which is the idea of like explore like 500 possible sorts of things and figure out where, which one's the best. In AI algorithms, we try to be very efficient. Like one of the things that made DeepSeek, was successful is they had this sort of thing of like, basically instead of like judging individual results, they do what's called a group policy and like judge like 20 things at a time and then look how good that was and then go from there. And when you think about quantum, where you can say like, keep, instead of the model having to learn an algorithm to solve for chess, it can just literally say, just each step of the way, do 1,000 calculations and keep moving forward. So, it'll be wild to think about.
Yeah.
But just faster, better, everything.
Nailed it.
Yeah. And, the rate at which these things improve is just insane. So, I have a non-AI story here.
It's a letter from Sasquatch. Dear Weird Things gang, how come you don't talk about me anymore?
No more. Brian, Justin.
Yeah.
Brian, I've been impressed with your career of being a blockhead and hammering a nail into your head and eating fire.
I do like that blockhead and hammering a nail into my head are listed as two different things appropriately.
Yeah. Listen, you can just hammer a nail into your head, or you can just be a total blockhead. I'm impressed. It's great. I feel like you never reached your full potential.
Yeah, that I've been feeling that way lately too.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, in that area, I think there's I think you've done amazing in other areas. Okay, but let me just say this though. Had you ever considered? You've got the property, you've got the space, you've got the time. You ever thought about human cannonball?
I am now.
I bet you we could find one of those human cannonball cannons somewhere for sale.
Yeah. That'd be extraordinary. Well, now I want to find out the science of all that. I would imagine it's, oh man. Okay. All right. No, this is huge. This is a great idea.
I sent you a video link, by the way.
Okay. All right. Here, let me get that.
Ignore the title. Ignore the title.
I'm not going to see the title because I'm very good. I'm a bit like, I'm told that magicians would sometimes be nervous about the setup on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson because they're afraid, like, oh, Johnny will see the secret thing, and they're like, Johnny is very, very good at not seeing things. And so I did not see the title. So no, I think what you're describing sounds already like a great idea. Let's take a little look at what might be. Oh dear. California stuntman crashes to the ground as human cannonball act goes horribly wrong. Video shows.
Uh-oh.
He lived. Everybody know he lived. I would never show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, free ad for whatever this thing is. Oh man, we'll get back to this in 30 seconds.
That's for casinos in Texas. It's my new favorite ad.
This is the keep money in Texas thing you were talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a bunch of people in their cars because that's the most authentic place you could possibly be, saying like, you know what I like? Texas. And I think money should stay in Texas.
Texas Destination Resort Alliance.
Resort Alliance. And it's
paid by the Sands Corporation. Okay. Dude is going. Oh, ouch.
Oh,
okay.
no.
Yeah. All right. So this kind of hit me in the feels because why did it go? Wait, why is it Venezuelan migrating me? Go back. Oh man, I just got Fox News clipped. Now I'm gonna have to sit through another video.
This is a human cannonball. That's his name, by the way, human cannonball. His name is Chachi Valencia, whose stage name is the Rocket Man Valencia, was performing at the National Date Festival at Indigo when a strong gust of wind blew him off course. I mean, that's a risk you take. He's got a GoFundMe page, by the way, which let me find that the GoFundMe change.
Yeah, GoFundMe is about as close to insurance as variety entertainers get.
Yeah. He basically threw him off course, trip to the hospital. He wrote his comment was, "I will definitely not take as many risks, as many chances, especially when it's windy." That was the takeaway.
Oh, there we go. This is what it did. It did its clever. Okay, so we see audio listeners. We see a fairly typical canonical human cannonball act, and he lands off on the right side of the net. But when he takes a bounce, he's half off, enough off that the momentum sort of spins him cartwheeling off. So it looks roughly the equivalent of a roofer just falling off the roof onto straight up concrete, which is
not
bad.
so good, Al. Not so good.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or when Andrew first said human cannonball, I didn't go to guy getting shot out of a cannon, but rather those old videos of a guy taking a cannon to the gut?
It's funny. I thought the same thing for a second.
Did you? Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder, like, so what would you prefer? You have to do one, Brian. Would you rather get shot out of a cannon into a net or take a cannonball in the gut?
Definitely the net. Definitely the net. Because I've already done we've done a fair bit of like testing out. I've taken a few paintballs to my body, and I've had my fill.
So if you want, you can Google Rocket Man Valencia GoFundMe. You can find that. He's got that. He's got an update that he did a week ago or a few days ago. So he's making a recovery. And it's like, listen, I think 2 out of 3 of us here have done upside down straitjacket escapes. One of us has taken many close calls with in helping me test magic props and ideas, and many motorcycle stuff. Has had some very near misses and stuff. So we relate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, totally. Yeah.
But I was kind of
salute to Rocket Man.
Yeah, I was excited. Yeah, definitely shout out to that. It is, and I was like, man, that's still a thing. People still do that, and like that's super cool. Except when somebody gets hurt. But You know, I watched a YouTube thing about one of the people who does it, like I think at Ringling or whatever, and like he was a guy that like helped like set it up and said, "Yeah, I decided I wanted to do it, and one day I got to do it. And now I'm the cannonball dude."
Yeah, broken ribs, a broken wrist, a lacerated liver, surgery. Wow, that's, and then of course, and as the GoFundMe points out rightly, when you're out there doing the variety arts, you know, every minute you're not out there being a human cannonball is a minute you're not making money for the
Making money.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew like every time I had to do it, like when I did my Shark Week thing, you know, I had to get like a $1 million policy coverage and stuff, which is that's the interesting thing too, is like I hope that he was using there are policies that cover this. I would be amazed if the fairground would let you do this thing without a policy.
Well, I believe almost always those are liability to the attendees and the vendor be darned.
Yeah. No, mine was for myself because there were no attendees of the Sharks. You
Uh,
know?
oh, no. Like yours, great, good on you. But like working fairs and festivals, they do want insurance, but they want liability insurance only.
Yeah.
And then you could, you know, get insurance for yourself or don't. Who cares?
Yeah. ChatGPT is not
I
helping
see
me
you in
find
the
one.
chat says, I think it's gonna be a long time till he feels better.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
I see you now. You have to give him $5. Go to the website.
I
And
do.
give him $5. for
All
your
right, here I'm
jollies.
gonna back Chachi.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's do picks.
Well, here
Yeah.
I'll go first, and then I'll give
you-
$5.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna cover for you, but go ahead.
I got one that I started, and I don't even know that I'll finish it, but I like it as an idea enough to shout it out. A TV show that's on Hulu. I think it's like a 6-part documentary series that I first heard about from the podcast Search Engine that did a whole episode on it. But basically, there's lots of documentaries out there that you know, you got logistical challenges if you got to find teens that are interesting going through transformative moments in their lives, and you got to get adults that'll sign off on cameras being around those teens, and then usually that alone is hard enough. But this one is different because they also got permission to screen record their phones. Always, all of their electronic devices are part of everything that goes on the record. And if you've never seen how documentaries work, everyone's real stilted and acting at the beginning of production, but then, you know, the human, at some point, you become familiar with all these cameras and stuff. You stop really seeing them. You start being your authentic self, and then they're able to capture genuine moments that are interesting. And in this case, genuine moments with the level of internal reflection and fidelity that were heretofore I've never seen. So, like one of the very first opening scenes, the principal's welcoming everybody back from the pandemic and talks about all the famous, interesting people who have been at this school. And one of them is a guy, the photo of him shows him hugging Steph Curry. And because he, I don't know, owns the team or does marketing or something, whatever. It wasn't Steph Curry, it was the other guy. But his name was close enough to Steph Curry that the teen visibly squints and you see her phone come out. And normally we wouldn't get to know what happened, but instead we get to watch her Googling and fact checking. Did Steph Curry go to this high school, et cetera, et cetera? And then comes back, no, he did not. And then we see her start to spread gossip like, this guy's straight up lying. Why would he do that? Oh my God. And there's a wave and a bubble. And then we get to see another phone fact correct. And then it comes back. It's like, no, you misheard. It's the other guy in the picture. And it's like, oh, okay. But I thought that was really interesting that it's as close to psychic vision for a documentary as I'd ever encountered. And as a result, anyway, if you are, check it out. The show's called Social Studies on Hulu.
That sounds very invasive and interesting.
Well, yeah, you do later on get like frank conversations about how teens interact with pornography and there's even a discussion where kids in mixed company kind of casually admit, yeah, I made $75 sending pictures of my feet to an old man. They got kind of a psychic hangover after it is what I think PJ Vogt called it. But it's an interesting level of depth on there.
Very cool. I got to run, so I'll just jump in with my pick, which is I've been on the treadmill and watching the MCU in original order. And so
What's the most recent?
right now in the middle of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I still have the same notes on that the first time I saw it, which was, man, I like it when characters have agency and go do stuff instead of the writer waiting for them to have things happen to them.
Lot of shot, reverse shot.
Yeah,
Reverse shot.
I am like a huge James Gunn fan. I think Peacemaker's amazing. I think James Gunn at the top of his game is amazing. But yeah, Guardians too, like that was just I'm like, oh, so you're in this big Elizabeth chase, you land in this forest, and now the other plot shows up, and now you're gonna go do that plot and be like, Rocket, go fix this thing, you'll be fine. 2 minutes later, he's not fine.
Yeah.
And it's just such a listen.
Got away
my
from
disappointment is because Peacemaker's amazing. James Gunn's a fantastic writer, and that was just
Yeah.
So.
Not so great.
Later.
All right. See you, Mayne. My pick is Daredevil. Oh man, I bet you thought that Daredevil was gonna be bad. And that they went to Disney and it wasn't gonna capture the magic of the original. And why don't they just make Daredevil a comedy since he was so good on that one episode of She-Hulk? But boy, you weren't prepared for Daredevil to be good, except for episode 1. But it's good now, and the season's over. And guess what? Daredevil's back. Kingpin is awesome, and those actors are probably the best 2 casting decisions that the MCU has made since Robert Downey Jr. It's good. It stuck the landing. And more interestingly, Brian, dig this. It's a Marvel thing that ends with a world that's more interesting than the one you began with.
Well,
Therefore making it like you'd want to watch another thing. And that's something that hasn't really happened in a while in the MCU. It's just kind of like a story that then has a tag where you're like, what? This other action figure is showing up? And now, no.
I detect a lilt of like you don't mean it ironically. You mean like genuinely unironically, you're excited for the cracking open of a new shared universe.
It's the most interesting that the New York version, because Marvel,
the Hell's
has always
Kitchen
had
verse,
cosmic stuff and everything, but there's always been an element of Marvel that has been like, here are a bunch of heroes that live in New York City, and sometimes they run into each other, sometimes they don't. The world at the end of this season is one that I am very excited to see other characters involved in. There's already a few, but it's good. And I'll put your mind at ease. If you were worried that a Disney version of Daredevil would not be as violent,
gritty,
as Netflix version, you might be worried after the first episode, because there's a lot of CGI and it doesn't look like the Netflix thing. And you're like, oh God, a lot of rubber people doing rubber fighting. There's stuff that happens at the end of the season.
All right. Yeah, this is the nudge I needed, because I've figured out that there's so much. We were talking about this on Cord Killers. Like, TV shows are like books now, where it's like they come out and there's no expectation that everyone's going to watch them all at the same time.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, I love that author. I'll get around to it sometime this summer. And then you hear from a friend, oh my God, I just finished it. Yep, you got to read it. And so that's when you tip. And I think you just tipped me into, okay, fine, I'm going to watch Daredevil mode.
Be aware that episode, like, they shut down the shooting of that season to retool the scripts.
Yeah.
And you can tell why, and you can tell why they didn't reshoot episode 1, because even though it's not great, and if anything, it has a lot of the hallmarks of like bad Disney stuff.
No.
By the end of it, everything pays off.
Oh, I think I just figured out what we solved the mystery of the co-host. This will be what takes us out. Sometimes we solve mysteries on the Weird Things podcast.
Sure, yeah.
What's happening is, as we're doing the show, I'm altering shots to set up a definitive Weird Things guide, and that is confusing the Stream Deck because it is expecting certain inputs from vMix that are altering, and so it's connecting and disconnecting, which we did it. We solved AI, we solved Marvel, we solved teenagers, and we solved the mystery of the co-host.
Bye.
It's been weird. Got it. Nailed it.
Got him.
Banked. And then I do have to refresh that one. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to save this and get back to the riddle of the Sphinx. I got to solve other things too.
All right. I will see you later, buddy.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.